Hey there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for doing this again. I my ego got the best of me, and I guess I had been running around that morning. And so when I looked at that video, my face looked so droopy.
I won't say anything about that. I'll let you have that. But like when I do these, when I wake up in the morning, I say, "How am I going to comb my hair?" So I haven't been to a beauty salon in like whenever it was we went home. So, every week I wash my hair. Sometimes I braid it in little braids. I put it in a ponytail. I put it on top of my head. I'm beyond vanity. I don't even care what I look like. I'm trying to do something that I hope
Actually,
will make a change. So I try not to
th-
think about what I look like.
don't take this wrong because this isn't about age, but just in the general face and hair type. I mean, you remind me a lot of my great grandmother.
Well, thank
And
you.
some very strong Native American features in there, and I mean, just the hair and everything. So it's yeah, I had to get my hair done because actually, with all the drama that's been going on, I didn't realize how much stress I had been accumulating, and I actually was starting to have some hair fall out. So it's like, yeah, that's not good.
Stress is hard, really is trying to process all this. Every time somebody asks me how I'm doing, I don't even know how I'm doing. I get up in the morning, so I start my work at 6 a.m. and I'm done with my work at 2:30 in the afternoon. And sometimes it drags on to 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. Plus, I'm trying to fold these chats in. So I'm
Mhm.
literally drained by the time I go to bed. I mean, like, it's just nothing left. Plus, when you hear these stories, your heart just hurts so bad, to think that we have so much history of violence, and
Right.
yet still we are like we're having an awakening. Where have we been before?
Right. And I don't know if you did you want to start the recording or
Yeah, yes.
go
So
ahead.
let's start this correctly. So the way this works, you tell us your name, and then you share anything you feel comfortable sharing with us to help us get to know you a little bit better. So please, your name.
My name is Crystal Chambers. I'm a professor of educational leadership at East Carolina University.
I'm sure there's a lot more than that. You also have a law degree.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So yeah, I've been doing a lot. I have a law degree and a PhD from the University of Virginia. My area of expertise involves race, class, and gender as it deals with people in the academy. So I'm looking at students getting to and through the academy. But as I evolved in my career and my interests, very much interested in faculty in that regard. How do they come to the academy and advance through their ranks?
yeah. We also, in full disclosure and transparency, you were my dissertation chair, my doctoral chair. So make sure that gets out there so people don't think we're not being on the up and up. But you were my doctoral chair, and as I
Yes,
said,
we spent
you,
a lot of hours together reading and writing and revising and editing and but ultimately yes, getting it done.
I'll say, and I said this to you the other day, I would not have my degree if it were not for you. And I think that the point that that statement makes for me makes for a lot of Black people in predominantly white institutions, right? Who's your advocate, who speaks for you, who pushes you, who guides you, who advises you without judging you. And I think it's so important for predominantly white colleges to have Black and brown faculty to help, because I think, it's sort of like a white person telling you what it's like to be Black. How would you know? So when you've got a student in front of you who have similar challenges, similar issues as you can identify and relate to that. So
And the other thing that I find is that my white colleagues just don't see it. Had a situation this week where a Black student of mine said to me, "I don't think this professor values my work." Now, it's not the case that the professor didn't value her work, but I sent the message on to the professor, and he's like, "Oh, I can't understand how." I mean, this is a white male. Now, how she would get that from me or anything like that, and I said, "Well, welcome to my world." But I'll be sure to pass on the message because really, until you're in that position, I don't think our colleagues really see it.
Yeah.
And so, in my line of work, I've had whole classes rescheduled because one student went and told the department chair that I was intimidating. And I'm trying to figure out, how are you in educational leadership and scared of me?
Right.
I mean, if I'm the scariest thing out there to you, I mean, you got a lot coming. And yet at the same time, I just see time and again where um, white people in different roles, even, all the way into retirement, can interject their opinion and change the trajectory of Black folks in the academy. And this is both, at the faculty level, um, leadership level and roles, and then students. All it takes is one white professor. There was an undergraduate student who came to me because a white professor told him he couldn't major in racism. He was a double major in African American studies and political science, with a minor in ethnic studies. And I think he had Spanish folded in there somewhere. Dude was doing a lot, admittedly. But he was studying race and racism and how it impacted. And just because, that particular faculty member didn't understand his area of interest didn't mean that it didn't exist. And to devalue what he was doing in that way, I can't imagine doing that as a professor, even if I didn't necessarily agree with or understand what another student was saying. I mean, I just wouldn't do it. And so, like, the gall of it all amazes me.
Mm. And I think that part and parcel of our society has long empowered white people to feel like they know all the ins and outs of what it is to teach diverse students, old students, young students. And when I came to you, I enrolled in ECU in 2012. I did a remote distance program that you guys did, and never in my entire academic career was I a traditional student. I didn't get my first degree until I was 45 years old, and so a lot of what I experience where I work is there's an assumption that, I'm a faculty member and I've reached this level of expertise and I'm this, and you couldn't possibly challenge me on what I'm saying or what I'm thinking because I am a faculty member. I'm tenured, I'm governing, whatever it is. And for Black and brown students, there's a factor of trust and an ability to communicate with your faculty, right? So where I work at, a lot of the Black and brown students feel they have no community, right? They have nowhere to go. They've got a few Black faculty at the law school, admittedly, and I think they're continuing to try to do better. But if the only Black faculty is Dr. Crystal Chambers, and all the Black students are showing up in her office asking for help, what a load that puts on her. Because in addition to doing her daily job teaching, she's doing research, she's writing, she's doing all these other kind of programs, and she's got all these Black kids standing at her door waiting for help. Help me, please. And I think something you said, let me just finish this. Something you said the other day was just so profoundly. I thought about it after we finished. Every last one of your doctoral program students in my cohort finished. Every last one of them. And I don't know what East Carolina does and how they manage things, but that's an attribute to you, to what you were able to do with all that was on your plate, struggling with all the things that are going on within the university, changes of leadership. All of your students completed their doctoral degree. That's powerful because what were we, 25? I think we eventually got down to 21 or 22 or something like that. What were they, 8 of us? I don't remember what it is, but
No, I had 11 of you guys, I believe, in total, out of your crew. And so, because we split it down the middle. And well, I mean, didn't split it down the middle. I mean, you all made your choices. And then once I got full, I stopped taking students on because I knew that I could not carry, that many more, because we had a cohort before that and a cohort before that of students. And so trying to be responsible for all of those students. And, my colleague continued to take them on, but so many, even in so doing, they didn't complete because that same discipline and rigor that I give my students, he's a lot more passive and, allows you to go at your own pace, which, if you have people who are self-directed and their doctoral studies are 100% of what they're doing, that works. But when your students are working professionals, it's very easy to make schooling the last thing you do. So I was in you guys' faces and I was emailing you, and I gave you deadlines and all kinds of things. And because of that, my crew completed. I've started taking on some of the people who have not completed, and those have become part of my load. But I am sad for some of them because some of their areas were things that I was really interested in, and I would have loved to have worked with them, but just as a matter of capacity
Right.
at the time could not.
Yeah. Can you talk, when you started talking earlier, you talked a little bit about some of your work you're doing in race and ethnicity studies and research and things. Can you talk a little bit about that and what your overall outcome you hope to make with those kinds of that kind of work?
Right. So a few years ago, I went on ahead and taught a course in African American Studies. First, it was the introductory course, so survey course. And the way that the whole program was introduced was to be interdisciplinary, but from the beginning, the only faculty teaching in it were history.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and got qualified to teach as a political science professor. They didn't pay me for it, which, I'm teaching Intro to African American Studies. And so we got to talk about the question, was this slave labor? And I mean, the short answer to it is no, because it was voluntary. Slaves didn't have a choice. I had a choice. And after that, I taught the seminar course, the senior seminar course in African American Studies. And it's through that I was able to connect with Black undergrads. And so my purpose, was to connect with Black students, because if you think about where Black people get their doctorates and where we tend to be in universities, we're not with undergraduates. Like most other first-gen peoples, including, Asian Americans, Native Americans and the like, we get our doctorates in the professions. And so when undergrads are coming through and they have to take their general education courses in English and economics and political science and the like, there are so few of us in those disciplines. And yet so many of us have these rudimentary backgrounds that, like my political science strings, talking to my political science colleagues, I speak raws, and, we can do this analysis. Actually, if you wanted to, I could collaborate with you. And, that's a whole nother conversation, just, kind of just the whole credentialing piece, because I'm sitting there, well, maybe you'll be better off in public administration. No, this is, really what I do. But even beyond that credentialing piece, having the respect that, hey, I know something here. So think about our faculty who are in social work. There's so many Black social workers with PhDs working in universities, but for the most part, that coursework is at the graduate level. What if they were teaching a course in sociology? And what would that mean for those groups of students? And so I think to think a little bit more flexibly across units, so that students can actually experience the breadth of the faculty that our universities have, and doing it in a way that doesn't penalize the faculty member. I mean, it's ridiculous that I taught 2 classes for ECU for free. Yeah. And somebody got the student credit hours from that. So it wasn't that the university didn't get paid.
Right.
I didn't get paid. And again, that was my choice. But even as I did that, I've advocated, that they fully fund programs to make sure that they are paying the people that are in those programs. And actually, part of the work that we've done this summer in terms of program adequacy has been to request for full funding. We have African American studies, ethnic studies, as well as women's studies, and not one of them has been adequately funded.
And that's probably one of the downsides of teaching courses that do not appeal to the majority, right? So there are, I'm sure there are students of all ethnicities that will take a history or African American history class or something like that, but that's not where they're aiming for, right? They're just trying to get credit so they can get to the place where they're trying, whatever their major is.
Well, our students need domestic and global diversity courses. And in fact, that African American Studies intro course is one of the highest student credit hour producers in our undergraduate curriculum. So it isn't that it's not appealing to everyone else. But yeah, that's not the only space where I think, Black faculty should be able to come back and teach. And certainly if you don't have an expertise there, you should not come back and teach it regardless of what your race is. Black students just need to be able to see us and to know that we're there and to know that we're in their corner. And if I had not had those experiences teaching them, I would not have encountered some just wonderful undergraduates. Our head of the NAACP at ECU, the student chapter, he was one of the students in that class. And so we still have that connection. And even as they try to do their work, because we have that connection, we're just in a better position than we were years ago when students had no connections with the faculty. They had connections with student affairs professionals. And while I do respect the work of student affairs educators, they're at-will employees.
Yeah.
There are things that I can do as a full professor that and say and et cetera that they can't.
Right. And I think that the other side of that is like, I don't care what you teach, every school is held to the same standard, completion rates, right? How many of your students enroll complete, because there's a tick, if you enrolled 100 students and only 25 complete, that's a problem. And so why institutions don't realize the necessity for, if you're going to invite Black and brown students into your school, or however you want to classify them, that they have someone that looks like them to ensure that they can complete. Because as I said to you the other day, if I would have had a white advisor, I probably would not have completed, because my work, especially at that time, was way more onerous, because I'm working a full-time job, I've got a sick child, I've got all these things up against me. And having you to guide me, to tell me that what you wrote didn't make any sense, rewrite this again. I think I could just far about 100 iterations of my thesis, because you'd read it and say, what the hell are you thinking here, and so
I don't think I said what the hell you're thinking, but
you know what I mean.
I might have been thinking that, but I didn't write that.
Right. But you know what I mean, you're
Yeah.
like, where are you going with this, and so whereas someone else may have just said this is not acceptable and just left me on my own to try to figure out how to make it acceptable, you would come and have coffee and meet with us and talk with us. And it was more than just our advisor, it's more than just our professor. So I always think that I don't care what kind of university you're in, if you have a population that does not look like the overarching university, you need people who look like those students to get them through, because.
Yeah. And I'm kind of in this space too, just thinking about beyond retention, because one of the ECU actually does a really good job of retaining its Black students. We actually retain Black males at a higher rate than we retain white males, and that's absolutely true. However, our students are strong middle students, so they're strong average students. So very few are in the honors college, get a couple, each year, starting there. You never see them getting those university-wide awards.
Yep.
Every now and again, you'll see one as the student body president. And so the question for me is, beyond just mere survival, what does it take for Black students to thrive? I found out on a data dig some years back that 60% of Black students coming into colleges and universities declare a STEM major, but
Yep. Never
they
fit.
don't complete them.
Absolutely. Yep.
And so then who is it at those gateway classes, and when we only have one Black biology professor?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think that that's the thing that, people talk about striking while the iron is hot right now in this time. I think that we need to really have some serious conversations about what we hope to accomplish when we bring these different populations into institutions, so in addition to, trying to give them the discipline of completing a college degree, giving them some sense of how to survive once you left the college,
Oh,
go into the
absolutely.
workforce, and I don't think that happens by happenstance. You have to feel empowered. You have to have some sense of self-esteem that I'm okay. Because like in elite institutions, Black and brown students come in with this mark on their back, right? So are you here because you're smart? Are you here because you can, stand up to the rigor of this university? Or are you here because we had a token or a quota or something that we had to meet? So we've allowed in this number of Black and brown students, and not really putting together a whole community, someone in student affairs, someone's in career services, all of these things to help them think about where to go. And, I'm not going to say anything else nice about you. This is my last nice thing I'm going to say about you, but it was that part of you that I think that people need to have, is to have that Black faculty member or brown faculty member who is going to see the entire student and not just this little bit of work you need to do right here. So writing your thesis, taking these courses, and all those things, but to actually see the whole entire person. And that's
Yeah.
that's what Black faculty, brown faculty do. They see the whole person. They don't just limit it to your 7-digit number that you are in the SAP or SIS system that says student identifier. You're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's who you are.
Yeah, I mean, everybody brings their whole person into the academy. And so we're talking about student, faculty, staff, and whoever. It's your whole person that comes in, and that means developing that whole person. Because if my mind is on, George Floyd, I'm not taking in any other information. And so, throughout this whole period, when I have taught classes, I have done, those pulse checks with students, what's working well for you, what's not working well. Had a good conversation at the end of last spring, and we started, the class with, what's one good thing that going to remote learning brought for your remote working. What's one good thing that came out of it? Because my students are very reticent to start with the negative.
Right.
And then, then tell me what's the one thing that really kicks rocks.
Right.
And so once we deal with that really negative piece, you talk about it, it lifts, and then we can go on to the rest of the content.
Right. I think that's absolutely correct. So I want to ask you about something you said earlier. So you had a student say that you were intimidating. One of those things that we all experience somewhere along the line, that we're either violent or angry or intimidating or threatening or passive aggressive or whatever words you can find to throw at someone, and to have that said to you. And, I spent 4 years with you, and I was never intimidated or threatened by you. I was amazed at your brilliance. So here's this lawyer, this PhD, UVA, all of these things. And here I am, a 50-year-old woman coming into your class, and all these other kids are just babies. And you were able to see from the youngest one of us to the oldest one of us enough to see us get to the other side. And I think that For people to say those kinds of things about you, there must be something else going on with them than it is with you. Because, as I said, my writing was not great. It really wasn't, because I hadn't been in school in a long time. And, just the whole thought of writing a document from A to Z that covers all these topics was just so foreign to me. So for someone to say that you are threatening or intimidating, I don't understand how they can get that from you. I will say you are not easy. You're not going to, let you slide. That isn't going to happen. That's absolutely true, but not intimidating or threatening. Why do you think that person said that? Do you think they were saying that because they really felt that, or do you think they said that because they were trying to hurt you?
I'm not sure what their motivation was in that particular context. What I do know is that white people, white women are not used to someone like me. So they are not used to someone who is poised, articulate, who's in a position of power there as your instructor, and someone who, like me, who's telling them what to do. And so with me too, there's the race factor. There's an age factor, or it's not so much my actual age as, what you perceive to be age. Black don't crack does not work well in the academy, but my genes are my genes. And, I just have to, roll with what I've got. And so I'm sorry if there's, a piece of envy or a piece of jealousy that makes you feel intimidated because I've had a set of experiences that you probably don't have that have made me the person that I, am. But rather than be intimidated about it, understand that, yeah, I'm here for a reason. I've got my doctorate, you work on yours, and I'll help you with what I've got. I'm not in competition with any of my students. I used to joke with my students years ago and say, I got to be nice to y'all because I might need a job someday.
Yeah.
And I'm happy when my students do so well. I have now 6 graduates of our program who are community college presidents. That is so exciting to me. We're not in competition. I'm happy to get you, to where you are. And so, yeah, if somebody's coming up and saying that they're intimidated by me or otherwise has an interpersonal issue that's interpersonal in the sense that they're having it all by themselves and they have to go tell someone else and they never discuss it with me, to me, that's on them. That's something that they've internalized. What bothers me, though, is the administrative response, because changing my course schedule around and making me have new course preps before, that was harmful to me pre-tenure as I'm trying to, get through under publish or perish. But it also did absolutely nothing for that student because she was able to, rather than learning from the experience, the learning opportunity was missed. This is classic Karen behavior now. We would, Karen behavior. And rather than address it right then and there, she now has this as a strategy. And I'm quite sure I wasn't the first person she used it on, but, she's going to keep using it until one day it stops, till she's caught on camera,
right,
or something crazy like that.
Calling the police and saying, the black man threatened me because my dog's not on leash. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question. So in the lines of your race and ethnicity and diversity studies, what do you understand about where this construct comes from, and how does it interface into the world that we live in today? And so I'm sure there's some very obvious answers, but there's probably more that you know about this than most of us. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I mean, rather than a biological construct, race is a sociological one, but that doesn't make it any less real. And to dismiss it as any otherwise, when people said, we're all of the human race, well, to me, that's incredibly dismissive because my daughter, when she was 3 years old, used to say, I love my lighty brown skin. Not only do I appreciate the way that my phenotype looks, there's a culture and a heritage there that I am actually proud of. And so to be so dismissive of that is problematic. And to come at me, I don't see color. Well, there's a whole part of me then that you don't see.
Right.
And that's probably real because, we all do the Du Bois thing where we wear the mask and, go into a certain place. And there's a way, there's a code of conduct and a speech and a cadence that happens with each space. I am finding, though, that the older I get, the lines between those spaces is getting smaller and smaller. So I can bring my cadence into the boardroom and have very direct conversations with my colleagues on these issues. But if we're talking about that sociological construct, well then what it means, what does it mean? And foundationally, globally, there's anti-Black racism, meaning that what we think about people in the world it is based on this, very rudimentary lie that people who have Black skin are inferior to everyone else. And the closer you are to having Black skin, somehow, the worse we tend to perceive and think of you. And the whiter you are, the better, the smarter, the more intelligent, et cetera, that you're supposed to be. And we just know it's not true. I think there's enough events that we see in this world where we see gross stupidity by people on display, and we have to pay homage to that stupidity. So there's no biological basis; it's all sociological. And then because of that anti-Blackness, the more you are Black, it's like the harder that you have to work to be able to achieve in this society. And it means that a lot of people who are Black will reject society, because why should I strive to achieve on your terms? I am enough. My space is enough. And there's nothing wrong with that conception either.
In 1962, Malcolm X said the most disrespected woman in the world was a Black woman. The most neglected woman in the world was a Black woman. The most abused woman in the world was a Black woman. That was in 1962. What is that, 40 some years or 38 years now? We're still at that same place where we're easily stereotyped, we're easily pigeonholed, we're told, that we are something. I did not know this, but there's this new thing called the Crown Act, and I think 7 states have passed it now, that you could have dreadlocks or you could, have afros and all this. I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know that white people had a problem with how we wore our hair or stereotyped us by the way we wear our hair. And so as I, hear all these things, it's just almost unbelievable. So, people who have a mohawk, what kind of people are they? Or the people who shave off one side of their head or put a giant ring in their nose or ear. What do you have a law for that too? How did we get to the place where we are the people that every single experiment is done on us, right? So our hair. Okay, I got you. So now
You have to have those laws because people wouldn't hire us and would fire us because of the way our hair naturally is. And unless you go through a whole bunch of, processes, whether they're chemical or physical, whatever, somehow, you're just not, acceptable in your own skin and your own hair. Somebody who goes out and gets a mohawk or tattoos their face, I mean, that's something that they, put, to themselves. My hair, probably the healthiest space that I've ever had it in was in dreadlocks.
Right.
And that's something that my hair naturally can do.
Right.
And it is that, I don't know if you're familiar with the play, The Colored Museum.
Yeah.
And just like the whole voyeurism with us that, Sean Harper says Black men are the most over-researched, understood, misunderstood people on earth. And I would say the same thing with, Black women as well. I mean, Black men even more so, because it is this obsession with otherness.
Right.
and but you mentioned, Black women, specifically. I mean, these perceptions of us as being strong, as not having feelings, and you see it with the medical racism, where you know the last thing I want as a Black woman to do is have to go into the ER with stomach pains because I might come out of there with a hysterectomy.
Right.
And that has happened to a number of Black women. And I remember a specific case of a Black woman who was OBGYN that, they ended up having to give her an anesthetic, a general anesthetic, because of whatever was going on. And I mean, she sued them, but I mean, there's a part of her person now that is gone. She can't ever have biological children because that's gone, because there is this perception of who you are. The perception of Black women as being unrapeable.
Right.
I mean, highly problematic, because it not only makes Black women vulnerable to people from outside of Black communities, it makes us vulnerable to people within our communities. And that's, to me, is even sadder. If I've got to go out and fight the whole world, I want to come home and feel safe and secure and loved and cared for. But if I have to turn around and fight you,
right,
yeah,
it's a bit much, right? So, I think there's so many stories. You've got the Tuskegee Airmen and all the experiments there. You've got a woman. I think she did a special on Black babies that back in the 16, 17, and 1800s, they put a hook in the brand new baby's head to see why it wasn't as smart as a white person. And when I saw that, I watched that on NPR. And I'm going to tell you something. When I watched that thing, I was just so amazed that white people are called human and we are inhuman, because I believe there's violence in every race. I don't think there's any race that's violentless. But why are we more violent than them? We didn't wipe out all the Indians. We didn't destroy all the Jews. We, Black people, brown people, we have our issues, and there's no doubt about it. There's no, putting a napkin on that and pretending that doesn't exist. But wide scale hatred for people because they look different is not a characteristic of Black people. So, and my favorite one of those things is to see a white woman in the elevator with a tall, dark-skinned man, and see her inch as close to the side of the elevator so she can be as far away from him as he could possibly be, and she knows nothing about him other than he's tall and dark. And it's like, when does this stop being a thing? When does this stop being a reason why we can justify behaviors? Because Mr. Floyd was a tall, dark-skinned man who had done something, and I don't even know what he's done, because even when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, it's like, did he have a counterfeit $20 or didn't he? So it's debated what it is. But handcuffed, he's laying on the ground, face down, and someone has their knee on his neck. Why? That man, one of those two men was inhuman. And I don't know which one it was, but one of those two men was inhuman. And my vote would be for the person who had his knee on his neck, but the person who had his knee on the neck of the person there must have thought that person was inhuman. And that dialogue that we have in America about being Black, and going to work around white people and working with white people, right? So something happened not too long ago. A woman, she was Indian, and I guess they used some kind of flavoring in their food that makes it really stand out, makes it have a really pungent odor. And I don't know what it is, but something. And someone told her, you have got to stop bringing this food into the office because it's smelling up our space. So it is not just, that we can't see ourselves and see humanity in each other. It's just that we've also got to make you feel like you are something wrong with you and the way you behave, because Black women, we are promiscuous, we're angry, you can pick a whole dictionary worth of adjectives to describe us, and none of them
and yet the opposite situation in the elevator is the white girl who inches closer to this dark skinned man because she's got her own thoughts about what he is and what she can have, from him. And so, I mean, it's this obsession with otherness, you're both reviled and then obsessed all at the same
Same
time.
time. Yep.
I did see when somebody signed and when the protest movement, it's, I don't understand why you hate us. Your daughters love every inch of us.
Right. Right. Exactly. But that was the Emmett Till story, right? So to
Oh,
be able
totally.
to look at a white woman, I mean, I don't know if he whistled at her or said anything to her, but that was the story that was told, and one of the problems, and this belongs to me and I own it completely. What I don't understand about Black men is, why would you pick a white woman over a Black woman when some point in time that's going to catch you? And I'll tell you a quick story. Back in my very young age, after I left my daughter's father, I dated a white man for probably 2 or 3 years. And he says to me one day, what was the straw that broke the camel's back? He says, "Why do you people dance like that? Why do you listen to that kind of music? Why is your hair like that?" And I had so many responses to that. I said, "Okay, let me just leave.
Yeah.
This is not going to work for me. And I find that in every day. I find that still today. Right? So, you know, everywhere I go, I find that there's something wrong with me. It's always me. It's never the other person. It's something wrong with me. And I think what you said about getting as you age, you're getting your reasonableness to accepting this crap that you're getting is narrower. Well, I'm a lot older than you, and so my reasonableness has gone completely out the window, because I think it's absolutely absurd that I am who I am, and what I have done and what I've been able to accomplish has never been recognized anywhere. When I got my doctorate degree, my boss's boss brought me a I don't know what that flower is, but very few people can grow it. They go, it's beautiful. You get it home from the store and it dies, and you don't have anything with
Oh,
these
the orchid.
orchid, beautiful leaves, and a card saying, "I'm proud of you." But no one else in my institution acknowledged that I had completed my doctorate in 4 years, not 5, 6, no ABD for Rochelle, no one. My boss has to this day ever acknowledged that I did that. Whereas another one of my colleagues went and got her JD at Central. They threw a party.
Wow.
They had a party, and so, okay, well, all right then, and so in a lot of ways, to be Black is such a chore. It's not simply that you are trying to live your life, be productive citizens, contribute to the world, but you've got so much laid on top of you that it's a struggle. It's a struggle that is so unbearable. And I agree what you said about, I believe Black men are fragile. I believe they're even more fragile than Black women, because they're attacked from all kinds of ways, right? So that whatever that is that makes you a man, you got another man of another race who feels some kind of way about you. You've got all these things that our society has leaped on you, and you're trying to survive. And so a lot of times, specifically in relationships, we end up emasculating them to the point where they are so fragile that they become something other than what they were intended to be. So
I mean, so I love the book by Cole and Gottschalk on gender talk, because it really gets into some of these issues within Black communities, with how Black men and women relate to each other, the things that we do to each other, and thinking about ways that we can further uplift each other. And one of the essences of it is, like, until you have Black men who respect Black women as well, you really can't have a holistic community uplift. And so when you do have Black women who go out there and we get our degrees and we come home and we cook at night and, take care of the children, et cetera, we need partners,
right,
who can help us with that work. Now, if you choose not to get a degree, that's fine. You must work.
right.
And so if it's emasculating for me to tell you to get a job and you're not internally prompted to go get a job on your own, there's something problematic there. There's something else that's going on there. And admittedly, there's a host of mental health issues that we all deal with, because we're living while Black in the US. And if we can address and tackle that a lot more, I think this idea that Black women are going out and emasculating Black men, I mean, what you get out in the world is one thing, but what you get when you come home,
Home. Yep.
yeah, that's
That's a
that's
whole
that's
another
a
thing.
whole nother.
Yep.
But I mean, in terms of the institution, I have never expected anything from my institution. And I think I've told you guys in class, institutional loyalty is a misnomer because institutions have no loyalty. They are inanimate objects. The people who are in them um, might as well be inanimate objects because there's no love there. And so it was really interesting to me with the summer because my millennial colleagues and they're a little bit younger and some of this expectation that their supervisor would reach out to them and see how they're doing. Well, my supervisor didn't reach out to me and I didn't expect that at
Right.
all. My
Right.
millennial white female colleague, so the most, junior person in the hierarchy is the one who calls me. And it's like, I appreciated that because it showed me that she had a sensitivity and awareness to it. But it's like, baby, I'm good because I'm not expecting that from you in the first place. That said, that shows kind of what I've had to endure. And so maybe, by the time my grandchildren are older, because I don't think this is going to happen in time for my children, but by the time my grandchildren come around, they can go to a workplace where they're just as accepted as everyone else.
Yep, the Martin Luther King speech. Absolutely. Judge me by my character, not by my color. I want to read something to you. I'm going to leave out parts of it because I don't think it's right. She did not give me permission to fully say this, but I want to read this to you. I am an alum and current faculty member. Coming back to my university as a Black student and a faculty member is a lonely experience. While I was a student, I had my fellow students tell me to my face that I did not deserve to be at this university. They had already decided the only reason I was at this university was because I was Black. It didn't matter that I had earned my way into this university the same way they did. It didn't matter that I had earned a merit-based scholarship to attend. It didn't matter that I had chosen to attend this university over other Ivy League institutions. It only mattered to them that I was Black, and that meant I could not have earned my way into this university. The worst part was that these were not random people. They were people who, up until then, I believed were my friends. Being Black at this university is demoralizing. It means that every accomplishment you have achieved is worthless. As a Black faculty member at this university, I feel isolated. At UNC, they have a Black faculty caucus. Where's this at my university? If it exists, I haven't been able to connect to it. And if it does exist, why is it in the shadows while UNC is this public? I challenge you to answer these questions and to reflect on what it means to be a Black faculty on this campus. As a Black alum, I feel undervalued. Perhaps this stems from my experience as a student, but I don't feel like I'm a part of this university's community. Since graduating from this university, I have lived relatively close to campus, but I seldom visit prior to joining the faculty. Only alumni event I have ever participated in was in my 10-year reunion, and I only did that for about an hour. I remember the message from the alumni weekends from that time. Welcome back, Black Alumni and Students Alliance. I did not feel welcome. I joked with a faculty member friend of mine from another university that it felt more like an invitation to a lynching party than an alumni reception. In retrospect, the statement was a bit hyperbolic, but I share it to give you a sense of how I felt about returning to my alma mater and to give you a sense of why I so seldom visit. I remember the image used in that announcement. It was a painting of light is easy to love by someone. And I think this sums up my Black experience at my university perfectly. Isolated and alone. And every time, I read it 3 or 4 times a day because it's exactly how I feel. And I'm not a faculty, although I've been trying to teach forever, I'm not a faculty, but I care for the Black and brown students at my university. They come here and have dinner, they come meet judges, lawyers, mayors, anybody that I can get to come to a dinner so they can build their own community outside of my university because they don't feel that in their university. And to have someone write something like that is so powerfully painful that, you cannot even imagine every day isolated and alone, and I'm in a place with thousands of people. And I can't imagine what you must feel because I remember when you were working on tenure and doing all those other kinds of things, you probably feel isolated and alone a lot of times too, because, you're you're the only voice that's advocating for something the rest of the university probably doesn't see as a good thing. And so you're there by yourself fighting a fight that you may not win.
I love this question that Nolan Cabrera raises in his book, White Men on Campus. Since when did being an ally become a status?
Right.
And so I see people putting this status, putting this label on themselves as allies. But when they see what's going on, I mean, because her story, I mean, it resonates with me as well. And I mean, the sad thing is that it is so non-unique. You know, well, the sad thing is that it's happened, but it's just that much tragic that it's non-unique. And so then when you have someone who calls themselves an ally and they witness what's going on and do absolutely nothing. And so I remember being at a faculty dinner party at another colleague's home. He and I are speaking, you know, this white male, and a white female faculty member comes in, stands between us, turns her back to me, and proceeds to talk to him. And he did absolutely nothing, said absolutely nothing. And there were a number of incidents with this woman that happened over the years. And so finally, one day she just caught me on the wrong day. And I let her have it. And he decides to come back at me. And I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. So thank you for coming on the vanguard of white womanhood. Where were you all of these times when all of these things that were clearly wrong happened?
Yeah.
And you said nothing, but you call yourself an ally.
Right. I think it's you know, white people have a certain level of comfort with their behaviors and their thoughts and their ideas, and it doesn't matter how it impacts you. We have 5 minutes, so I'm going to give you the last 5 minutes to say whatever you wish to say. Once this video is converted, I'll send you a link. You can say whether we can upload it or we will do it again.
I feel a lot better about this time. So yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to do a retake. But this idea, though, this fear of white people adjusting or correcting each other, checking each other, doing their own work with respect to race. I mean, to me, that is the largest hurdle to making racial equity work, because it's not a Black and brown people problem. The problem is with white people and what they do and say and their being. And so until they assess and adjust, there really is not a way for the rest of us forward. And I think that's, you know, like a key point. I mean, again, this idea of allyship. So what does it mean? And I'm not asking for any white saviors to come in, and I'm gonna, you know, going ahead and do my work. You know, at the table, you know, sitting at the table with executives, trying to make policy, and do my job. But when you see something, you know, say something, just like, you know, they say with terrorism. And because there's this self-protectiveness, or even like with my colleague, you can correct me, somehow you feel okay, correct, but not her. You know, it's really, you know, it's highly problematic, to say the least. But I think it is the biggest hurdle, because they don't see their contributions when it is
right
them.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate this. As I said, as soon as it converts, I'll send you a link. You can let me know whether I can put it up or not. And I'm going to do a little bit of promotion for myself. Please let me come teach my class at East Carolina, because I'm going to do it remotely. I'm not coming there. But I think this class really belongs, you know, and there's a part, and I've said this to you and others over there several times, there's a part that belongs in this higher ed administration that needs technology included into it, because as we are right now stuck, you know, so many schools are thinking about teaching completely online. How many of your faculty are prepared to do that? So if I am going to be an administrator in a university or president or whatever I'm going to be, how can I guide them if I don't understand what these technologies that are coming and are currently existing? And then my other class is gender, poverty, and race through the lens of emerging technology, which is a whole nother matter that's going to disrupt those who are marginalized. So I'm just a little promo for me right there, just a little bit right there.
I mean, I can run it by the faculty, but I mean, you know how our program is, and so there is just there is no space for, you know, one more course. But I think that there should be at least, especially with that CIO piece, a nugget that's in there. And ECU recently approved for the planning of a degree in IT administration, but that's coming out of a different department than ours.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I proposed my course to my university, I said I'd do this free. Just let me do it so you can get the experience, and students would do it. And we did a presentation, and I mean, students absolutely loved the course, but no faculty would. So I was like, okay, no administrator would. So I was like, okay. And I actually got my hand slapped for even trying to teach my course, you know, like, so it's like,
yeah, I mean, the only place that I could see offering it would be in political science or the master's in public affairs, because even women's studies, the way that they have it linked to English right now, makes it hard for anybody from a social scientific perspective to do anything with it. I mean, so, I mean, the world has problems, but the university has disciplines in our departments, and it makes it so rigid and so difficult to actually deal with the world as it is. We need to digest it down into bits and bytes. It's like when we take, you know, the world, you know, as round as it is, and make it a Rubik's Cube.
yeah.
That's what the academy does.
Well, thank you so much for this. You'll be hearing from me, and thank you for the other information you sent me. Thank you. I will put that to good use. So please stay safe, stay in touch. I feel like I haven't talked to you in forever, so please stay in touch and let me know how you're doing. And if I can help in any way, please let me know.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. You
Yeah.
have a good day. Stay healthy too.
You too, dear. Bye.
Bye-bye.